Hey everyone, welcome to Get to Know a 20K Producer. I'm absolutely ecstatic about this Get to Know a 20K Producer as Miss Judi Watson has went above and beyond a 20K producer over the past couple of months. So this podcast is well overdue. So I'm super excited to have Judi in here with me today. With that being said, my name is Marisa Maggio. I'm with Family First Life Solidity out of Boston, Massachusetts, and I am here with Miss Judi Watson. How are you doing today, Judi?
Good.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds a lot better in person, I must say. Well, super excited to have you here. Just to hit everything off, Judi, just to get started, what were you doing kind of before FFL, and what kind of transitioned you into the insurance industry?
So I've been in corporate America for 15 years before FFL. I worked at companies such as Sotheby's, the NBA, TD Waterhouse, Barclays Private Bank. So I've got a vast experience in corporate America. What caused me to come into Family First Life is my daughter got super sick, and it sort of just threw my whole world upside down. My husband and I knew that I needed to make a change so that I could have more work-life balance. Because everyone who's in corporate America knows, being in corporate America, you work long hours. It's 9 to 5 technically, but it isn't really. So my weeks like 50, 60, sometimes 70 weeks. So after Kate got sick, I went on a search for something. It took me a few years, but I finally landed here.
Got it. So super excited to have you, and you have just a really unique story, and I think that it resonates with a lot of different people that didn't come from necessarily another company over to FFL, which is extremely common, but just kind of getting into the insurance industry and getting started with FFL. Tell us a little bit about what that looked like in the beginning for you.
Well, it was definitely different because it's not something I've ever done, but once I decided to embark on this journey, I went at it 100%. So just kind of figuring out what I needed to do, how I needed to do it, and then structuring my life to sort of work for myself was something that I actually got a ton of help with you, Christina, and just everyone else around me that poured into me and helped me to sort of structure things so I could work for myself.
Absolutely, and I know that you're issuing over 30,000 pretty much month in, month out, which is amazing because you consider yourself part-time. So talk to us a little bit about what that looks like, being that, you are in the state of New York, but you don't run business in the state of New York, and kind of what your schedule looks like week in, week out, and why it looks that way.
So as a New York agent, everyone who's in New York knows New York is a monopoly, so it's really tough. So predominantly my business is New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. More recently, it's been Jersey and Pennsylvania. What that looks like is Monday mornings, I drive into the New Jersey office via work spots, and I make all my calls there. So it takes me about an hour and a half or so to get there, depending on traffic, sometimes 2. Once I get there, I'm making my phone calls for the next 2 days. So I completely book out my days. Tuesday, it's just a full day. Wednesday, it's a full day. So it's Tuesday in the office, making my calls. I get home maybe about 7 or 8 o'clock, prep everything for Tuesday morning. I'm out the house by about 7, and I'm in the field until 10, 11. I get home 12, 1, prep, and leave again next day.
Okay, so not a lot of people would be willing, to actually, travel that distance to be able to run business. So a couple things I want to touch on first. You make a point to get into the New Jersey office each and every Monday, and it seems like that's a non-negotiable for you, right?
100%. I've actually seen it help my business grow tremendously.
Awesome. And, I think that even, that commute to the office, right? What are you usually doing kind of on your way there or on your way home? What does that usually look like?
Usually a podcast or listening to something, pulling something up. It's just getting in the right frame of mind.
Awesome. So it's basically preparing you for that dial session so you can make sure you have the best dial session.
100%.
Oftentimes I say to any agent, it's like, people will be like, well, that office is, 2 hours away or 2.5 or 3 hours away. And it's like, I get it. But guess what? You have a, 2.5, 3 hour advantage on everybody else instead of, walking, from your couch over to the living room to start making your dials and, you didn't even brush your teeth and, all that. So it definitely gives you a good competitive edge there. And then being willing to go home and then, kind of, so to say, get into the field and redo. You told me that you stack your days, right? That Tuesday, Wednesday, usually real big days for you, right?
They're huge.
And what does that look like for you in terms of schedule that's non-negotiable? You're not leaving until you have how many appointments?
So my goal was always 20 for the next 2 days. Some days it doesn't quite pan out, but 18 to 20 is what it's looking like. I also factor in travel time between one appointment and another. So and Jersey's huge, so is Pennsylvania. So it's going to take me about 45 minutes to get from one appointment to the other. I sort of factor that in. So as I'm creating my schedule, I'm sort of analyzing and making sure I structure it properly.
Awesome. So just making sure you can get from one appointment to another, but at the same time, not hindering yourself to say, I'm going to not set that 2:00 because, I have Joe at 2:30 and it's, a 30-minute drive. You're not hindering yourself that way. So just stacking it up.
Absolutely.
Love it. And what do you think has pushed you really to be able to issue, 30 grand each and every month, being in the field so limitedly?
I'll say first and foremost, it's everything that we plug into the training. It's the constant support that I receive from you guys, you, Paul. It's just understanding that I can do this. So I go in each week just knowing that I have a goal. I have a very analytical way of thinking about the way I want my business to go. And so even though I have to do it on a part-time schedule, I know what my end goal is. So that allows me to run with the intention and the fierceness that I do, because I know what my goal is on long term.
Absolutely. So you're running part-time, essentially with a full-time result, which is really cool to see. And you run one weekend a month, is that right?
Yeah, like every other weekend.
Every other weekend. Awesome. So you're issuing over 30,000 each and every month, running, essentially on average 3 days in the field, which is amazing. And I think a lot of that comes down to kind of who you are as a person in terms of your non-negotiables. And one thing that I see in you is when you say this is a non-negotiable, it's a non-negotiable. So with that being said, what were some of the non-negotiables maybe you had to put in place for yourself or with your family that have kind of helped you become that 30K plus producer over the past few months? Because prior to that, you were issuing, 15, 20 grand a month, but you've really been far surpassing that 30,000 every single month. And I think that's because of a lot of the things that you put in place.
I think one of the very first non-negotiables was getting into an office. I always wanted to go in, and I don't know, for some reason I just kept thinking, well, I can do this from home. But I noticed that being at home, there are a lot of times that there are interruptions, even if they're small, but they break your rhythm. And sometimes you get mom guilt working from home. So you're like, oh, something's going on in the room, or maybe I should make Kate a hot lunch, or maybe I'll sit on the deck with her for 15 minutes, which turns into a half hour, which turns into an hour. But not being in that environment, not being at home and taking that trip into the office, there are no distractions. So I literally go into the office, I put on my headset, and I just get to work. That's the number one non-negotiable. The second one is I'm working. I'm going to work on Tuesday and Wednesday. So when I leave my home in the morning, first of all, it's super far, so it's not like I can come back for lunch, but I'm in the field. So I'm out there, and if I get no-showed or if something happens, an appointment didn't quite turn out as planned, I'm door knocking. So I'm out in the field all day, every day. So those days that I'm
Absolutely. So just really high activity when you're in the field. You're not out there to waste time. You're out there with intentionality. And then same thing, utilizing work spots, right? I think that when work spots came out was pretty much when you decided, hey, maybe I should check out that Jersey office, right?
That's correct.
So if you don't have work spots, get on work spots.
For sure.
Definitely helps out a lot. So with that being said, those two non-negotiables being put in place, that really brought you, right, from like a $15,000, $20,000 producer to a $30,000 plus producer, right?
It increased my business drastically.
Awesome. And, coming from corporate America into, a 1099 position, what were some of the hardest things that you feel like you had to overcome in order to almost accept the fact that I'm self-employed and this is my business? And what made you take kind of ownership of it?
I think time management was one of the more difficult things for all of us. We work for ourselves, right? So you don't have to punch the clock. You don't have to be someplace at a certain time. But understanding that this is your business and treating it that way. So even though I wasn't technically having to, speak to someone or be someplace at a certain time, I made that a priority for myself. So I implemented that. So let's say I don't have an 8 a.m. appointment for whatever reason. I'm still going to be in the field, so I'm going to start door knocking. So essentially, I'm still working at 8 a.m. So that was something that really helped me. The other thing was really just making sure that no matter what I did it with severe intention and understanding that consistency is the key. So even if a week didn't go the way I wanted to, doesn't matter. Just keep going in that same vein with that same fierceness.
Absolutely. And I think that you're just a great example of that. You always keep moving, even when you hit like a little bit of a struggle or a patch, you know that the numbers always play themselves out, right?
That's correct.
So with that being said, I think that on the phones, you're amazing. And if you could just give one phone tip, just only one, what would that be?
Something that I love that I started doing recently was I've been running a lot of age mortgage protection from the CRM, and sometimes they're super aged. So I actually have two. Can I just?
All right, two.
Okay. So for the phone script, instead of saying, I'm calling in regards to your mortgage with this particular lender for this amount, because the leads are aged, I always just say at this particular address. So I'm calling in regards to your property over at 123 Success Lane. I'm sure I ripped that from someone, but that has been so amazing because I would get pushback saying, well, no, I'm not with that lender anymore. Or no, that's not my mortgage amount. So now I'm just saying the resident address.
Awesome. I love that. So you're alleviating the objection before it can become one.
That's right. And then when I'm in the field with those age leads, I sort of just fold over the top so that you can't see the date.
Right. And the lender. Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Awesome. And what would the second one be?
Well, that was it tied in.
Oh, that was okay. Fair. All right. Awesome. And then when you're in the home, I know you on a personal level at this point, which I'm so thankful for, but you're just completely genuine. I think that you're the kind of person that you're actually able to leave whatever you have going on in the car, and you're able to go into the client's home, and you're able to actually focus on the client, and not really on, what is the commission that I'm going to make, or, is there going to be a commission, a 10%, knock because I had to go with this carrier or whatever, right? You're in there to help the client. What do you think are some practices that anybody can do to really just kind of reframe their mind to be able to make sure when you're going into the home, you're focused on the client, you're not focused on, what's going on at home, so to say?
Yes, not focused on what's at home and not focused on commissions. So the two things I always do is I make sure I think of each client as an extension of my family. So everyone I sit with, I think, this could be my aunt, my uncle, my grandma, my mom, my sister, my brother. So I look at them as if they are an extension of my family. That allows me to never go into a home with a sales hat, ever. I go in with a spirit of service. I'm here to help you, and I want to leave you in a better place than I found. That's the most important. And all of us have so many things going on at home. No one is immune to just life. But I do just a quick sort of breathing. I started doing affirmations. I started listening to things that just sort of encourage me and build me and just center me. So that allows me to go into each and every home with a clear mind and leave everything in the car.
I love that. And I think that affirmations are huge. I am is a really those are two really powerful words to use together, right? So affirmations are huge. And really, I like what you said, the extension of a family member. Because I feel like I do the same thing. If I sat with you, I'll be looking at you like you're my sister, and that's so important because when you are able to take the commission out of it, you're able to take yourself out of it, and you can just focus on that person as you would a family member. That's huge. I think that's why you see so much success when you're in the field, which is great. With that being said, do you feel like, you've been growing a team? Most of it has been warm market, if not all, right?
All of it so far.
Yeah, and you have your brother on board, which is awesome, and he's killing it, right? So super exciting, in terms of family and in warm market. Do you feel like there's any prerequisites that somebody needs to have in order to, be able to do this? Or if you're not so good with this and you're probably not really going to be good at this, what's your view on that?
I do love that anyone can do this, but anyone can do this if they have the right mindset and if they have the right character and discipline. So what I mean by that is, yes, this is an industry, and Family First has sort of carved out a niche where anyone can do this because the training is there. So we have all of the tools needed to be super successful, but you have to have the right mindset. You have to come in understanding that this is your business. You have to be disciplined. You have to be consistent. You have to be humble. You have to be coachable. So if you keep that sort of formula, that recipe, and understand that you need to have all of these components and work hard, Can't forget that. You have to work hard. It's simple, but it's still hard work. And it's your business. So there's so many different hats that you have to wear. But it's so worth it because you get to work as hard for yourself as you would for someone else. And that's always been my goal.
Absolutely. And I love that about you. You've always brought that up. You brought up, I've worked, like you said, 50, 60 hours for somebody else. And, I had to find a change. And you were able to find that change. And with that, and kind of to pivot back to what you were doing previously, you weren't making bad money. Is that right?
That's correct.
You were making over 6 figures.
That's correct.
Well over, right?
Yes.
And you've been able to come here, and have you been able to replace your income? What does that look like for you, like financially, for you and your family?
Yeah, definitely. I've been able to replace my income, and it's been awesome because it came at a time when things were super crazy. My husband is in corporate travel, and so when COVID hit, they cut his salary by 40%. So it was so crucial that the work I was doing was also able to replace his income and then also my income. So I'm definitely generating $30,000 a month. That. So it's definitely replaced the income plus.
Awesome. Happy to hear that. Love hearing that. And then if you could give a couple of tips for in-home, just a couple tips, maybe like a couple, breadcrumbs you leave or whatever it might be, or anything that you feel like is really important that, a new agent could implement today or any agent could implement today, what would that be?
I always try to have the clients know that I'm there for them. And so it's super important that they understand that. And at the end of each appointment, I always ask them if they felt I've done a good job. And that's really important for me to hear because if I'm lacking in anything, I want that feedback so I can address it and fix it. I also always let them know, I say, this is exactly what I say. So I'm your agent for the rest of my life. So you're pretty much stuck with me. And they always laugh, but I mean it. I want them to know that if anything comes up and then when things do get to, they pass away, that it's literally my job to make sure that their family's taken care of. But even if something happens while they're alive, they become ill, anything, I want them to know they can reach out to me and I will reach out to the insurance company on their behalf. So I sort of take away any of the additional steps that might happen if you're just a number. Like if you put a policy in place with a phone, you don't have that one-to-one connection. And I also always put my phone number in your phone with a selfie.
Awesome. I love that. So you take a selfie with the client and then you save your phone number with the selfie.
I do.
So when it pops up.
Mm-hmm. And I see both selfies.
I love that. And then just to kind of before we close out, what are some of your goals or what is your personal production goal for the end of the year? And what do you want your team to be looking like by the end of 2021?
So my personal production goal is 250,000. I feel like I'm on course for that. And for my team, it's all more market, and I'm just so psyched to be working with so many of them. I really want them to reach their potential. I want them to see that putting in the hard work, making the sacrifices, and doing what needs to be done in order to get the results that they want is just going to change their life so tremendously.
Awesome. I love that. And, your team is like one big family. And, it's like now it's like you guys are like an extension of my family. And that's just really what this company looks like. And it makes it that much better, right?
It's so true.
And is there anything else that you want to add in before we close out, Judi?
Yeah, I'll just say that this is an opportunity I never really saw for myself. I've never envisioned being an insurance broker. It was never something that said, oh yeah, I'm going to go up and do that. But I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'm so grateful that Sean Mike has created this platform and that we get to work in a company that is so amazing that they put our families ahead of the company even, and that we just get to reap the benefits of it.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on with me today, Judi. I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to how this year ends out and what, 2022 has to hold for you and your team. So thank you guys all. Thanks for tuning in and thanks for having us on. Take care.
you.